So what I was going to say is, are there any times now, even 5 years on, that you still struggle with today in terms of your relapsing or just anything that you've had a problem with in the past, or are you sort of past that now and sort of over the hill?
I wouldn't say I know a lot of people say like they're fully recovered, which I totally believe like is possible. I don't think I would necessarily say about myself that I'm fully recovered. I think it's more I just manage. I know how to deal with it. I know my coping mechanisms. There is still things that I struggle with, particularly now. It's like body image that I'm struggling with the most, I think. But on the flip side of that, I can deal with it, and I can recognise when I'm being irrational. I can speak to people around us, and that's, I guess, what I use my like Instagram for as well, because sometimes in the moment I'm like being really irrational about my body, about what I've eaten, and then I can write out a caption or whatever, post it, and then I'll read it back and I'm like, you've just written that, or what would you tell like people online? And like, take your own advice. So I wouldn't say I'm like fully recovered or anything. There's definitely still things I struggle with, but it's not in control at all anymore, and I could never see myself going back to how I was in the past. I think it's just a case of knowing kind of how to deal with it and how to manage it, and using like support around us, which I'm good at doing, and I'm grateful for like the support that I do have around us.
So for anyone that may be listening that may have been going through similar to what you have, or as maybe also came out slightly over the other side, are there any sort of support groups other than sort of family and friends that you did use, whether it be Facebook groups, I don't know, helplines, anything like that?
I've used Beat a few times, which is the online like eating disorder charity, and they cover all, like, it's not just anorexia, it's bulimia, just anything really, and that's who I raised the money for charity, because I have used them like personally a few times, because they've got like an online chat kind of thing, and like an online helpline. But other than that, it mainly has been support of kind of like family, friends, but I've also been to like, not like last year I went through therapy and stuff, and that was more, not so much for my eating disorder, but more to kind of address, because of the admissions that I'd had in hospital, some of them were quite difficult and traumatic. So I had last year. Is
that more of the things that you saw than
some
more than what you were going through?
Yeah, so some of the things, like most of the things that I saw, I guess for me, when I was like very unwell, and the time I was sectioned and on the NG tube, that was very like a very traumatic time, and was still causing a lot of issues like the past few years, especially working within a hospital. I found, as much as like I love my job, I found certain areas of like, if there was a patient and they were on an NG tube or anything like that, it would instantly trigger me and
trigger like a memory sort of thing.
Yeah, so I went through like EMDR therapy last year, which I kind of like
What's that?
It's eye movement therapy, so it's really bizarre. But it really did help, and I kind of like self-referred myself to them, and I was on the waiting list for about 1.5 years to get that, but I'm grateful that I waited it, but it shouldn't be that long.
It's good that you noticed it to put yourself forward in the first place. That shows progress in itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's another thing, is just like, you can self-refer to I think it was like talking therapies, but then I ended up actually seeing someone face to face. So yeah, family, friends, you can self-refer, and there is a lot of help online as well that you can get, and talk to people that I guess I'm always there to talk to as well. Like, my DMs are always open. I'm not saying that I'll be able to help, but if I can help one person, then that makes me happy.
Purely for my benefit here, what is eye movement therapy? Just like what happened?
So basically,
I've never heard of it.
I had never heard of it until like I went last year, and it's like, it's basically, you can either, like, the man was like kind of moving his finger from side to side, like the therapist moving his finger from side to side, or you can do it like tapping, and it's basically like, I don't actually know how to describe it. It's he basically talks you through like a traumatic memory, like you have that sole focus that you're going to focus on, and then like I didn't do like the where I was following his finger, like to move his finger. We were like doing tapping, so I had to like tap on my chest, and he would do it as well. And I don't know, it's meant to like, I don't actually know how it works, but it did really work. And it kind of, it takes you, it's a bit like, I think it's a bit like hypnosis, but not, it's just a bit different like take on it. God, this sounds probably terrible. I'm really not doing it any justice, but it did work.
It's okay, I'll Google it afterwards.
I was going to say Google it afterwards, because I'm really not, I'm not selling it here. But yeah, it's really interesting, so I would definitely recommend Googling it and having like a look into it. But it did definitely help. So yeah.
So you say that you now work in the hospital that you've been in yourself.
Yeah.
Was going into a hospital to work always the plan, or did that sort of being in there yourself and experiencing what was going on, did that sort of inspire you to go and work there, or was it something that you'd always wanted to do?
I think from a young age I wanted to be a midwife, like that's all I ever wanted to be, so I guess I did want to work in a hospital. But then when I was like in hospital, I worked with an occupational therapist, and they helped us kind of with the social anxiety side of things and going out and eating. And I was like, I really want to like become an OT, and I'd never really heard of it before. I'd been in hospital. So as I was coming to like the end of my last admission, I was like looking for jobs, just something to give us a bit of routine and get us kind of like something to motivate us to kind of keep going. And like an OT assistant job came up, and it was in I nearly said hotel, it definitely wasn't a hotel I was in, in the hospital that I was in, and the staff on the ward were like, go for it, like what have you got to lose, it's good, it'll be really good for you, good experience even if you don't get it, just to kind of have an interview. And I ended up getting it, and I was working, it was for like on the children's ward of the hospital that I was in. But the hospital that I'm in is literally, it's absolutely massive. It's the RBI hospital in Newcastle. It is like quite a well-known hospital, but it's massive. So it was kind of, the ward I was on is the other end of the hospital. But it was very much of a, it was quite triggering at first, because I used to have like a 10-minute walk a day where I would walk to kind of where I was now working. And it took a while to get used to kind of seeing the staff from the ward I was on as a patient when I was kind of at work. Yeah. But then almost then it kind of gave us like a sense of like pride as well, because I was
how far you've came to be on the other side.
Yeah. And I'm like, and then I built up to where I was like going to visit the ward I was on in my uniform, and just to kind of like say hello. And so it took a while to get to that point and not be triggered or anything, but yeah, like now.
Yeah, those things are going to take time, especially from what you've said today on how bad it did get to then being on the flip side, working in that same hospital. Yeah. It's not going to happen overnight, is it?
Exactly, you know, it's a long process. But it did get there.
No, you've, like, I didn't realise it got that bad. Obviously, like, there's only so much you put on Instagram. You're not going to put everything, but it does show how far you've actually came. And for me, until I'd started my fitness account on Instagram, I genuinely didn't realise how common it was. I know. Eating disorders. Like, I've got so many people that I follow and follow me that literally have in the bio like recovering eating disorder, and I'm like, I genuinely did not realise how popular it was. Well, not popular, how common, it was. How common was the word. It was until I started my account.
I know, it is crazy how common it is. It really is. sad.
But yeah, it is. But I think the more people do post about it and the more people realise there is help out there, like you say, from friends, family, the various different companies that you've sort of had contact with, therapy. I think the more people realise that it is there, then the more people can come out of the other side in a positive way.
Yeah.
Similar to yourself.
Definitely.
I think we'll wrap this one up because I think we've said a hell of a lot. And like you say, this is your first time
I know.
sort of speaking. How's it felt to sort of speak about it?
I have enjoyed speaking about it. It's a lot because it's not something I talk about the whole process, I guess, a lot. And like you say, I don't think from my Instagram, it doesn't show exactly kind of the ins and outs of it and how bad things did get. Yes, you've got a photo, which I'm always a bit like, I get with like comparison photos, like before and after kind of thing. I always get a bit worried about posting them because I don't post them for like you've done amazing, well done, and like look how unwell I was kind of thing. But it's more just to show it is possible to go from kind of being that extremely unwell, but more mentally, because like the physical, like it is a mental health illness. It's not physical.
All mental,
it's all mental health. It's the physical's just like a product.
It's a byproduct
of that. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it is nice to be able to kind of share the whole kind of story.
Yeah, and I think 99.9% of the people that do see those posts, I think, are thinking what you want them to think.
Yeah.
In terms of a bit of inspiration, say if someone was in that position now, and they see what you've been able to do, then it's sort of concrete evidence that you can come out the other side of it.
Yeah.
And the difference in those two photos that you, the photo that's going to be on the thumbnail and your more recent photo is incredible, what you've done.
Thank you.
And no problem. You should be very proud of what you've done.
That means a lot. Thank you.
Don't worry about it. But yeah, thank you very much for sort of opening up for the first time fully, and I hope this sort of conversation can help some people that are potentially in the same position that you've been in.
Yeah.
This is your chance to do any plugs that you'd like to do. Where can people find you? Is there anything else you want to say before we close out?
Firstly, just thank you for having us on the podcast, and it's nice, like I say, to be able to kind of share the whole story properly for the first time, and for your support on Instagram. Like, you've been there for ages now, like years.
Yeah, it's been a while, yeah.
It has been a while, so it's nice to get a proper conversation in. But yes, if anyone would like to kind of look at my journey that I've posted on Instagram, it's just Becca.lift on Instagram. Oh, that makes me feel a bit cringe when I say that, but
well, what I'll do is I'll put all of your sort of links in the show notes below, so anyone can find you. And then if there's any other sort of links in terms of mental health companies or anything that you've used, I'll also put them in the show notes so people can get a direct link straight to them.
Sounds good. Lovely.
But yeah, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you very much.
No problem. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you drop a like. If you're new, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching part 3 of the podcast. If you'd like to see more clips of the Big Lad podcast, click right here. If you're new, subscribe. And if you enjoyed it, make sure you drop it a like down below. Thank you.